Welcome to the Gooder Podcast, where we talk with powerhouse women in CPG about their journeys to success. This episode is sponsored by Retail Voodoo, a brand development firm guiding mission-driven consumer brands to attract new and passionate consumer base, crush their categories through growth and innovation, and magnify their social and environmental impact. If your brand is in need of brand positioning, package design, or marketing activation, we are here to help. You can find more information at www.retail-voodoo.com.
Hi, Diana Freik here with the Gooder Podcast, where I get to talk with the powerhouse women in the food, beverage, and wellness categories about their journeys to success and their insights on the industry. Thank you for joining us today. Listen, real quick, this episode is brought to you by Retail Voodoo. Retail Voodoo is a brand development firm. Our clients include Starbucks, Kind, REI, PepsiCo, Hi-Key, and many other market leaders. We provide strategic brand and design services for leading brands in the food, wellness, beverage, and fitness industry. If your goal is to increase market share, drive growth, or disrupt the marketplace with new and innovative ideas, give us a call and let's talk. You can find out more about Retail Voodoo at retail-voodoo.com or send me an email at info@retail-voodoo.com. Okay. Well, hey, today I am excited to introduce Miss Amanda Sains. Is that right? Did I get your last name correct?
Yes, Sains.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Director of Marketing for Joolies Dates. She's a passionate brand builder by nature and has worked on several functional beverage CPG companies, not beverage, several functional CPG companies in general. And Amanda is now working towards making dates fun and bridging the gap between branded food and commoditized produce. Ooh, I like that. Hello, Miss Amanda. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. And you are in California right now. Is that true?
Yes, I live in LA.
Awesome. Okay, LA. Okay. That's what part of LA? LA is kind of big.
So I live in the South Bay, like Redondo Beach area.
Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, that's a great part of LA. Nice. Okay. Well, fun fact, just for everybody out there, Amanda and I met at the Sweets and Snacks show this last June in Indianapolis. That show was pretty good for you, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
It was such a funny show. We, as you can imagine, there were not a lot of people that showed up, and that allowed Joolies to literally be on an island. There were not a lot of booths near us. And when people would walk by, they would just be so delighted at our booth and the fact that dates were at a Sweets and Snacks show. So it ended up being a nice show. We had great conversations and a lot of great leads. So, and we met.
Yeah. And I think it's really great that I've seen Sweets and Snacks. I've attended that show for years now, and I've seen the evolution of these kind of natural and better for you brands coming in there. And you're definitely, Joolies is one of the ones that are coming in that is, ingredient centric. That really fits so neatly there. So I'm glad that ended up being a good show for you. Now, I haven't been to a show since then. I kind of backed out of Expo because of the spike, but I am going to go to Nosh Live in next week. So I'm excited for that. That one's definitely much smaller, and I'll probably kind of baby stepping back into it, getting ready for Expo next March, which I'm sure is going to just be redonkulous. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I will also be at Nosh. But we have the New York Produce Show. So since we are a produce company, we produce as well. So I might have New York Produce Show and one more in between Expo West.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We are trade show happy over here.
Yeah. I think we have strangely enough, I have a very specialized trade show that I'm doing in February that conflicts with specialty food, which I usually go to fancy food show, but I'm going to miss this one. So I'll probably catch the one in the fall, but it's crazy to go from 0 to, okay, now I have to choose again, which ones to.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. But I mean, talk about the spike in COVID. It was weird not to have a whole entire year without him. So blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I know. Well, so let's talk a little bit about Joolies. Why don't you tell us, about the brand? Why does it exist?
Yes. So at Joolies, we say we are changing the dating game one Medjool at a time. If you don't know what Medjools are, it is a type of date. There's actually 30 types of dates, and Medjools are the biggest types, and they're the most like luscious and snackable. And so we are a brand that just started basically in 2018. I was the second person behind the scenes to join. And, but we had a farm, right? So we have 500 acres in the Coachella Valley, all grown organically. And our founders, David Cole and Greg Wilsey, they came together in a way where David Cole, who is the founder with the farm, he was really fed up with the industry and how, they were not innovating. They were putting his delicious organic Medjool dates in plastic tubs and not really marketing them in a way that he saw the potential. And so he basically divorced the association which he was putting dates to, and then married the idea of Joolies. And so he joined up with Greg Wilsey, who has experience at the Wonderful Company. CEO Mark Maston also has experience at the Wonderful Company. And, shout out to them. We're taking that playbook, and that's what we want to do with Joolies, is to basically have more fun with the brand. And where I come in is that I'm that millennial marketer where I understand the trends in the industry. I understand what millennials want. They want a cool brand that they can put on Instagram and TikTok, and they want to be proud of something that they're putting in their bodies, and they can feel good about it and also not be ashamed to carry it around in their purse, workout bag, or, working in beverage. I used to work in the beverage industry. So I used to say, like, I wouldn't be caught dead with a can of Coca-Cola, right? But if I'm holding a kombucha or, like just a better for you drink, I would be proud to carry that and be like seen getting a picture taken of me. So I'm taking that approach with dates, and that's where we are. And, there's a total white space. We have brands like RX Bar and Lara Bar putting dates front and center on their packaging. And we're like, well, we have all these dates. Well, why aren't people just snacking on the dates? It's a whole fresh fruit that are full of antioxidants and nutrients, potassium. There's actually more potassium in dates than a banana.
Oh, really?
Yes, by weight, more potassium.
Interesting.
50%. So, huge potential for what we're trying to do, and just having a more fun approach with it. As the people watching on YouTube, they can see the packaging on my screen. It's a mint box that's very fun with pink and yellow, or orange and yellow on our other SKUs. And I like to call it brand catnip. It's so awesome. It's so like grabbable. You want to just like, what is this? And then you realize, oh, it's dates. I love dates. And so that's why we exist. And that's what we're trying to do. And over the last 2 years since we launched at Expo West 2019, we have found, again, like, at that trade show experience, people are like, oh my God, I love it. We just realized that we're onto something. It's been a little bit of a slow start, but over this time period, we've gotten into over 2,500 locations. So
that's amazing. And I even think your format is, I think the format of the product is actually really a great way. You're giving people kind of like bite-sized opportunities. They don't have to buy a tub to try something. You make trying the product really, really easy. And I don't know if that was part of the strategy coming into the marketplace. It's like, we don't need to have a 4-pound tub. Like, let's try a couple and let's package them up so that they're super cute and nobody's having to make a huge investment or feels bad for throwing something out if they don't like it. And then they turn around and they like it. I'm sure you've got some really great velocity on this. Like, once you have trial, I don't know, like, kind of what the stickiness is. And, but we're seeing some really nice growth there.
Yes. So we do have data to support this, so our target audience is the world traveled foodie and the health conscious consumer. But we know that the people that are already eating dates are, people from more of overseas, like a Middle Eastern background, that community. And then people that are, we say have been enjoying dates for over 30 years, i.e., older generation. And it's funny because when I joined the company, I'm an East Coaster. I live in LA right now, but I grew up in the East Coast, on the East Coast. And when I was approached with this opportunity, I was like, dates, grandmas eat dates. I don't know if we can do this. But then that's the challenge is how can we bring new consumers into the category?
Right.
And that's what Joolies is doing. So our data over the last year supports that we are actually not cannibalizing our competitors. We are bringing in the new consumer.
Yeah, it's all net new.
It's all net new, incremental. We tell this story to retailers that the velocity is there and that it won't mess up their category. It'll only help their category.
Yeah. And I think, we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I think your merchandising opportunities with a product like Joolies is also kind of exponential because, and you've probably tried everything from let's be in the produce section to let's be in grab and go to let's be over here near snacks. I think I think the product lends itself to a lot. It's so funny. You might not believe this. I'll have to go dig it out of my LinkedIn, but I went to a trade show. I think it was the last Expo West that I went to 2 years ago where I put a LinkedIn article where I said dates are the next food.
Oh my God, no way.
I said, dates are the next food. I predict. And somebody came at me. I don't remember who it was. And they're like, well, what's your evidence? And I'm like, well, you only have to work in the category long enough before you kind of have a gut instinct when you start to see what the product opportunities are and that sort of thing. But I have to go back and look at what my response was. But part of it was gut instinct based off of what I was seeing happening around the booths. I think there were a couple of booths that had dates. There was, I think you guys were, is it possible that you guys were at 2019 Expo?
That's when we launched. Yep.
Okay. So I think I saw you, and then there was somebody else that I saw that has a brown packaging system. I don't remember who they were, but also kind of like on the premium side. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is like candy, but it's like food. It's real food. And it's amazing. And it's got a lush texture to it. And, and a lot of people have bad experiences eating something out of a tub that they got for cheap that's been sitting in a warehouse for 14 years. And of course, they're not going to have a great memory of it. So I think you guys have a really awesome opportunity. So yeah, I'll send you that link when I find it. You'll laugh. I probably said something super dorky because I'm good for that.
No. Two things. Okay. So at trade shows, where we realized that we're onto something. It was at this show when we launched. It was, we would ask people, they would say, oh, I love, like, what is this booth? It's so beautiful. And then they would say, oh, dates. I love dates. So then they would eat the date and, we kind of just like watch them and see them like so happy, joyous. Mm-hmm. And then we say, well, what brand do you buy? And they go, oh, I don't know. The tub, the generic tub. And then, so that's how we know we can like brand something that people love. And we do it in a sustainable way with our eco packaging that's from recycled material and fully recyclable. But then another thing with the merchandising approach is when we were developing the brand, this is even before we had like any type of visual identity at all. We were doing market research and we would go into the retailers to see what's going on. Like, how is the current set merchandised?
Yep.
And I would go into the store with a plan of action and I could not find these darn things. I'm like, where are the dates? Is it the produce? Is it the snacks? Like, where are they? Yeah. And then I would find them like on the ground under the apples or under the bananas, like covered in dust. And these poor things, like, no wonder no one's eating dates. They can't find them. Yeah. So,
and they don't know what they are because they're in those clear tubs with some sort of generic white label printed on the top. I mean, when you have everything else singing at you, why would you go for something new, right?
Yeah, the citrus and the bananas, like everything is way more beautiful than brown dates. No offense to these beautiful fruits, but let's all be honest. We know what they look like. They are not beautiful. So we consider them like an unsung hero here. Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to bring some brightness and freshness to the category that is new and exciting.
That's interesting. Your approach to, that's how we do at Retail Voodoo, my real job, my day job. At Retail Voodoo, when we are looking for product opportunity, we go to stores across the United States, but we go into every kind of so we go into all categories. So we'll do everything from alt channel to MULO to big box and everything in between. Mm-hmm. And we do somewhere around 200 locations across the country. So we can see how different parts of the country handle whatever the category is that we're going into. Sometimes we'll go into cross categories too and just kind of go, oh, well, what's happening with crackers? Because that's kind of the same,
Yeah. No. I mean, all regions like play differently because the tastes of the audience there, of course, different category managers. So, I mean, it's super important to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, back to the whole like regional East Coast thing, people over there don't really eat dates. And people in California, the Southwest, date, because that's where they're grown.
Yeah.
It's more consumed. And then, back like on the East Coast, the hardest challenge right now for us is that Northern Eastern audience, because it's like totally over their heads. And I mean, it's just because it's unknown, right? It's not that they don't like it. It's just an unknown.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. We'll talk a little about it some more. I want to go back just a little bit. I want to go back before Joolies, because I think in the conversation that we had to prepare for this call, there was some really we had some really good conversation about how you got here and why naturals, why better for you. So let's go back to why this category at all. What was it a natural calling? Did you stumble across it? Did somebody bring you into it?
Yes. So just a real quick anecdote about what I was doing before. So I was selling software, trying to do 70 inside sales for a software company, 70 calls a day. It was my first job out of my undergrad. And at the time I was also like getting my master's. So I just was like a little bit of a frazzle case. But I was also a little shy, believe it or not. And I just like couldn't be on the phone. So 3 months go by and I'm like, I could barely do 30 calls a day. I was not getting any leads. And I know how cold sales is, like how cutting it can be. And I was like, I went up not to my manager, but to the VP of sales. And I was like, hey, like, you're going to fire me. I can feel it. So how about we like find something else for me to do? And he was like, okay, totally. Like, how about you be my right-hand girl, sales operations? And, you can then help the ecosystem work and then basically be my bulldog when they won't listen to me. And I was like, yes, I love that. I love being bulldogs. Like, that's my personality. This is way better. I can do internal sales, but external, maybe not.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like led me to a path where this company got acquired. I was then, the headquarters was in a different state and I was then remote and I was kind of working on an island. And during, org chart changes, perhaps my workload was a little lesser than I was used to. And so I told you I was like finishing my master's. I was then living in Baltimore. And so on my work breaks, I would kind of just go to Whole Foods and putz around and just explore the products that I loved, because I was also, eating personally very healthily and watching my sugar intake and just that whole thing. And then very unfortunately, to make things kind of like really not to be a downer, but my mom was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer, and it was stage 3B, meaning it was in both of her lungs. And so all of a sudden I went in from hyper personal eating healthily that I was like looking for my mom. I was like making charts for her, like basically telling her how to eat again, the way that I was eating so that we could avoid, more cancer, more everything. And, going to her chemo treatments and everything like that, I saw that she was drinking those pharmaceutical grade shakes. I don't want to name drop anyone, but the ones that you find in the pharmacy aisle. And you look at the ingredients and you just wonder, like, how on earth is this stuff allowed to be sold and consumed by the everyday person, let alone somebody that has a chronic disease.
Right.
And so I was just taken aghast. And that is when I discovered one of the products that I used to work for. It was called Be More Organic, and I love them. And, I just reached out to them, and it was a dairy-based protein drink, and they were locally made, the company was local. So I basically sent them an email and I was like, hey guys, love your packaging. Is there anything I can do to help? I was like, I'd love to maybe talk about a rebrand or, help out in the community. So I basically went from zero to doing marketing, events, social media, And then, a couple months later, I was doing operations. And then a couple months later, I was going, to every sales call across the country, like Kroger calls and,
Yeah.
Everything. So I felt like I went from zero to nothing, but I still had that other company that I was working for. So I had two jobs, going to school. And then once school ended, I was like, okay, that's a lot. So I finally was able to quit my job and go all in on the startup. And that was my entryway into the industry, because I realized that I'm so much more passionate about helping other people be healthy, be more, is the company that I was with. But I just took that approach as like, there's things in this world that can bring you joy and make you feel good.
It's so interesting, and those of you that listen to my podcast, you'll know that I'm also I'm in an MBA program right now. I decided, as I'm hitting my midpoint of my career, I'm wanting to learn more. And I just listened to something called The Three Marriages, where it talks about when you love your job the way that you love your life and a spouse or a family member, you know that you're headed in the right direction. And it doesn't mean that like you do your job 24/7 until you like run yourself into the ground. That's not what they're talking about. The concept of the three marriages is that because when you wake up in the morning, you're excited. And for some people, it's putting numbers together. For other people, it's helping people get healthy. And everybody has a different calling. But so it's interesting that you sound like you're there. Like you sound like you're there.
Yes, I am completely there. And I do have some comments on that, because there's a fine line, right? Because you can wake up every day and be excited to go to work. And I will admit, back in, this time period of my life, it was maybe 25 years old. And now I'm, over 30. It was exciting that I was able to accomplish all these things, work in very, very cross-functional departments and learn all these skills. And now I'm kind of like I hate to say this word because I think it's a little like, I don't know. I'm a full stack like marketer because I can see it very holistically.
Yeah.
However, there's a fine line of loving your job and allowing it to become part of your personality. Like that's not always a good thing either, because what happens is you get too emotionally tied to a job. Yep. And if everybody knows you as Amanda, fill in the gap, then what happens when it doesn't make you happy anymore? And
exactly.
And you need to set a boundary of your work hours, of your persona, of your personal life, and, not allow this like marriage to work become too much, because it will take you over and you will get burned out. And I learned that real hard.
Yeah. I think a lot of people did, but I think, those last few years, but it sounds like you kind of ran into it a little bit before the whole COVID thing happened.
Yes.
So why don't we, real quick, because I know we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment, but how did you find yourself at Joolies then? Like so you were at one place, you got excited and there were some things that happened and now you're at Joolies.
Yeah. So just a little bit of my journey and kind of, I have to say all this like really just transparently. So I was with one company and I said all those things just now about letting it become your personality, but then you have to look in the mirror and also look at your personal status and say like, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is it bringing you joy anymore? Mm-hmm. Is this financially okay? Is this feasible? And sometimes you have to accept the fact that maybe those things aren't true. Yeah. You have to look for something new. And that's exactly what I did. I very much love everyone that I've worked with along the way. But so that company I parted ways with. Mm-hmm. And then I was very fortunate to be relocated to LA from another company, of which I worked a couple months at. And then that was another realization for me, because it was when you meet people and you love them so much as people, maybe they aren't the best people to work with for
Yep.
you. And also maybe the company isn't at a point where you need to be with
Yep.
the amount of mentorship or resources that you need to be successful. And that was something that I had to accept, that the bridge point of me and Julie's didn't work out. And I was let go, and that's okay. It really stunk without, saying bad words. It was not great to be like, oh my God, I got let go. I just moved out to LA and now I'm jobless in in Los Angeles. Like, that is a really scary thing.
Yeah.
But I remember that day I called my parents and they're like, are you going to move back? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, no, I am going to get through this. I am going to use the network that I've been able to build over the last couple of years through the expos, through all the trade shows.
Yeah.
And I remember just being on the phone with everybody, reaching out on LinkedIn. I talked to some very high up people in the industry and they pointed me in the right direction. 29 days later, I was hired at Joolies.
Wow.
And I was like incredibly, incredibly grateful for everybody who helped me and saw that it was okay. Like, I guess I had a little bit of shame in what happened, but it wasn't anything to do with my performance. You just have to accept that something that wasn't working, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that go into it. And that is something that I've learned to get stronger from.
Yep.
And, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because honestly, I'm at a job where I have that fuzzy feeling in the morning every day. And I love to go back to work and trade shows and live the brand, but also know that, I still have my personal life. So,
yeah, I think it's really important. There's still some legacy, and I think this will probably go on for a while. Sometimes actually, probably more often than not, performance or bad fits are really what's happening within organization more so than poor performance, because you could take the exact same set of skills, move somebody into another org or bring somebody new in and everything snaps to grit. It really is an ecosystem. It's not like a single person.
Yeah.
And I think it's really great when you can hold on to that. I've had a couple of those myself where I was like, bad fit. And I was part of that. I was the bad fit. I was bad fit because the system was the system.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there was lots of learning. It's hard not to take it personally, especially if you're a person that prides themselves on performance.
Mm-hmm. And very much competitive but to me, I always use the metaphor as it's like dating. You have to date to find the right person. You shouldn't ever want to get married to something that's not working.
Yeah.
And, you don't need to sit in a seat that isn't, that's giving you stress and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it was. And right now, I'm just extremely grateful that I am at Joolies, and the team has been so wonderful, and they know exactly what happened. But it's like, mentorship is important, and being together with the right team.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when we were forming the Joolies team, my CEO said it's like, we're such a small startup that you're storming, you're forming, you're norming. Yeah. And I love that. And, it takes a little while to normalize and get the right squad together, but that's what it's about. You just have to know when to kind of cut your losses. So.
And when you're small, each new person, it's like you're in a rowboat. Each new person that comes on board, it's a little bit okay. And then we steady out and then somebody else comes on board. And it's not until you get to about 20, 25 where each new ad doesn't seem to rock the boat. So I don't know if you guys are quite at that size yet now.
No, we're still about the 10 mark, but I've never heard that rowboat analogy, and I love that.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned mentors a couple of times. Do you have a mentor? Were you working with somebody through this process, or do you just now have one now that you're at Joolies?
I would just say unofficially, I had a mentor, through this time period that a guy, and he was older in the industry. He had been through acquisitions, and I call him, he has the Midas touch, but he's worked at many companies that, go big. And I'm like, how the heck do you do it?
Yeah.
And it's like, you can be passionate about something, but also have foresight. And that is something that, as a female, is really hard to do, especially to know your potential. And so I think at the time I was going through like major imposter syndrome, and he's like, you just need to know your worth. You need to see people the way that we see you, and that you are extremely capable of doing things, and look how much you've done so far.
Yeah.
And I still go through that today. I mean, I think we all do. I'm only 32, and I admit I'm never the person that knows everything in the room, but I'm with the amount of people on my team that do know what to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just, that piece of advice that people gave me along the way is to know your worth, and don't be afraid to ask for more, because that is extremely important. Because if you have proven that on your journey, then people see that. So
that's great. I think mentors are great, and coaches, if you can find a good one, and the good ones usually cost a lot of money if you can afford one, are also quite valuable. Yeah. Amanda, let's talk a little bit more about Joolies now. You've been with them since the beginning, and I kind of wanted you to share with us a little bit more when you are talking about building a commoditized brand, a commoditized product into a brand. What are you working with? What are some of the hurdles, and what are some of the opportunities that make it maybe easier to go into the market? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, some of the hurdles right now is one I mentioned before, is that just the overall consumption of dates is pretty low. I think the last study I saw was like 6 to 8% household penetration. That's very low when you consider people buy apples and bananas almost every single grocery trip.
Right.
So that is what our main goal is to get more people to eat dates. Another challenge is that our largest competitor basically is, in the millions and multi-millions in revenue. And that's hard to, get across, but their distribution is way larger than us.
Sure.
But at the same time, now here we are, the little guys, we have the selling story that, again, back to bringing incremental consumers to the category. It's something that we are able to share with them. So when we are taking a commoditized fruit, like a date, we work with these buyers that are very data driven, and we're very lucky that, we have access to spend, we have access to some IRA, and then, of course, Whole Foods portals and everything like that, which is free to brands. But when we are, telling them this story about it's a commodity, why should I buy you guys? Why should I put you on my set? It's the value that we're trying to bring. And so the consumer, to me, is almost there. Like you mentioned, you meant a trend report where you called out dates. They're on their way up. And we're working now with like nutritionists and mommy bloggers, and the audience that truly need dates in their journey. I don't know if you know this or not, but dates are really great for nursing moms, for moms to be, and especially eating dates in the third trimester.
Really?
So, it helps. Sorry, guys, it helps soften your cervix for an easier labor. And
really?
Yeah, I didn't make that up. There's like, national studies on it. So, working with the consumer where they are in their journey and they might need it. In particular, and then also showing to the everyday consumer how dates are more versatile in their lives. You can snack on dates, but you can also make sauces, use them in any type of recipe, sugar swaps. They're a 1-to-1 sugar swap if you wanted to.
Right.
So it's not just about the fruit. It's about the consumer's experience of how they consume the fruit. So our approach is to educate, to charm and delight with our packaging, to tell the data story to the buyers, and then show the consumer that it's an easy to consume fruit and commodity, and that at the same time, super nutrient dense and good for you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There are There are women in the United States, particular groups of women in the United States that typically have more challenging labors than others. And I'm curious as to whether or not bringing something like dates into their diets, just raising the awareness, would be valuable to them. Like,
Wow.
I'm just thinking, abstractly like I do.
Yeah,
But
no, I love that. I'm gonna have to take a note and go look that up.
yeah. Yeah. Well, now Julie's has been foundational in bringing cred to dates as a health snack. Not quite, but sort of like Brad's kale chips back in the day. But you're now within a more mature market where consumers and brands are open to product and ingredient adoption. Like when Brad's was doing it, that was like heresy that you would eat kale on purpose. And now people are eating crickets. Like so. So I guess I wonder, what is your proudest moment so far? This might be a brand moment or it could be you within the brand. I'm not, however you want to look at that.
Oh man, that's a hard one. So what is my proudest moment? I just think that my proudest moment would have to be is just like that first day seeing the product on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's more of the feeling of seeing people consume your product in the wild, whether you're at Whole Foods shopping on your own grocery trip, seeing somebody put a Joolies box in their basket, or the amount of DMs that we get and people tagging us in their lives. I just feel so great that, we are part of people's lives more than anything I've truly experienced in my career. But, there is a funny feeling. Thrive Market is one of our great partners, same brand color, local company, and similar missions to be a more eco-minded platform. And one of the things that we were so excited about is they just surprised us and put a Joolies box in some of their commercials that were, nationally aired. And then one day I was going home to see my mom. And we could talk about that, but going home, and then I was in the Delta airport and I see Thrive Market ads with Joolies boxes in them.
Oh
so
my gosh.
There's just something about seeing your brand thrive with, pun intended, with thrive. and just a really rapid rate too. Mm-hmm. I have my friends tell me like, there's no reason I should be thinking about dates so much, but I do now because of you.
Of course.
That's another great thing because that means I'm doing my job right.
Oh, that's awesome. That goes back to that being passionate about what you do. It's just, you don't think about it. It's just part of who you are and part of your day. That's great. Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about self-care, particularly now in this last couple of years, but as part of somebody who is on a rapid trajectory of growth professionally, like you are a go-getter, you are wanting to take on the world. And we talked a little bit about really making sure, you mentioned this earlier, making sure that you don't over-index on the working hard. What are you doing for yourself, or how have the last couple of years impacted your well-being, and what are you doing now? What have you learned over the last several years that you are like really having to be mindful about and keeping yourself in check?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is going to be a long journey, but before I get into anything, I think it's also setting up non-negotiables with yourself. Through COVID, my non-negotiable was making my bed. That was like the only task that I had to do.
Really?
I lived by myself at the time. I'm like, get out of bed, make your bed. And then my other non-negotiable was you got to work out. And if I don't work out in the morning, then I'm not going to work out because I just, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of like my ritual.
Sure.
That's kind of like one way to keep myself in check. Of course, eating healthfully and all that jazz. But through recent years, very sadly, I've unfortunately lost both of my parents. My dad in 2019 in September, which was tragic. And then of course the quarantine happened and I was living alone and, having to grieve alone, literally, was a very sad time for me, because not only was I grieving the loss of my dad, we were all grieving the loss of our everyday lives. We were all grieving the loss of travel. And as people who travel a lot for work and trade shows, I was really missing that. I mean, how silly is that? But I was, alone by myself, having to go through Father's Day alone, sad. And then very unfortunately in July, my mom's cancer came back out of remission, and she degraded really, really rapidly. And she sadly passed away in September 2020.
I'm sorry.
1 year later, she passed away. And that was just horrendous for me. Not only the fact that, when you lose somebody, there's actually a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And we were very busy at Joolies. But I had to take a month off to deal with my family at home, the estate, the probate, the funeral, everything, across the country. And that was horrible. And then, to be honest, during that time period, I really couldn't grieve, because I was go, 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 help with the family, help with the house, clean, clean, clean. And then when I came back to LA, I really just went back to work. And that was probably not the best idea. So I say all this to lead up to today. It's November. It's almost December, but it's November. And my grandfather passed away in August. So I'm dealing with like triple whammy, like loss.
Yeah.
COVID this, work busy this. And my bottle was full. My bottle of water was overflowing.
Yeah.
And there was a time period about a month and a half ago where I literally just kind of broke. I couldn't stop crying. I was like irritable. I wasn't doing a good job at work. And I say all this because there were so many different elements of work coming at me.
Yeah.
And you just have to know, you have to know when to identify. I know not everyone's going to go through 3 losses in their lives, but there's still everybody's emotions and everybody's feelings are valid. So you have to just know when to identify when your bottle's full and when you need to just put the cap on it and then, disconnect. So therapy is huge, but also having that open communication with the people in your lives, just letting hey, I need a safe space.
Yeah.
Your loved ones, your boss. So, the one day where it was horrible, I just had to call my boss in the middle of the workday and say, hey, I need time off.
Yeah.
And taking the next 5 to 7 days to just do absolutely nothing but what gives me joy. And that's connecting and doing nothing. And my therapist was like, if you can just maybe shower that day or brush your teeth, if you if you just do these small wins, then that is a win. And that's all you need to take. And it's amazing what happens when you can just recharge your batteries. That's really all that's needed. So it's being really honest with yourself and being honest and communicate with the people around you, because people are there to support you. And don't ever feel like you're alone. And I say that in all aspects of your life.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's a lot all at once. I mean, people will experience loss over the course of their life for sure, but in a short period of time is very challenging, right? You mentioned, know when your bottle is full. No. So what does that mean for somebody who's a go-getter? Somebody who's going full throttle, maybe buries themselves in busyness when they don't want to deal with something. What was the 1 or 2 indicator that made you understand that your bottle was full? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. It's so weird to say this, but one, you can see maybe you're not hitting a deadline, or maybe you're not, maybe you notice that a project isn't the best that you would want. Those are kind of the obvious things. But I know I would notice in meetings, I'm not critically thinking. I'm not able to put my brain into this conversation.
Gotcha.
That was at work and also in relationships. And it's if you don't even have the brain power to contribute to, a conversation, then you just need to back off, go lay down. And I can laugh at it now, but it's it's real.
Yeah, I think because some people just, I'm thinking of myself. I'm really talking about myself right now. Some people will refuse to see like, I'll just work harder or longer or faster. I'm going to just power through this and it'll go away.
Yep.
And I think just like you're saying, when you start to see, you're just basically saying when you start to see yourself not behaving the way you would expect yourself to behave, that's probably the check-in, right? Mm-hmm. Check yourself, go take a half day, go for a walk, whatever, and examine maybe what's going on in your brain so that you can say, oh, I'm not dealing with this thing. I need to deal with this, or I just need to rest or whatever. That's what I think I hear you saying.
Yes. It's the old adage, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Right. So when do you find like, what kind of advice I'm trying, here, I'm trying to get three thoughts out at once. They're competing with each other. What advice do you give other women, maybe in that millennial group? Maybe let's just talk about millennials. These are a slightly different way of behaving out in business. High performers, highly competitive, 24 hours a day, 13 side hustles and 14 Instagram accounts. Like, what kind of advice do you give these people as they're going through their day about like just life, making sure that they don't crash the bus?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a little contradictory to what I just said about slowing down and taking a nap. But, the real thing is that you do have a choice. It's all your choice. You have a choice to speak up. You have a choice to ask for more. Mm-hmm. You are capable of doing both of those things, and that they are more important to get your voice out, because it's like, you got to shoot your shot. Another piece of advice that I think kind of goes hand in hand with like making the right choice, and that you have the choice to get out of any situation that isn't making you happy. I mean, look, I changed jobs, I moved locations, and those were my choices to follow an ambition that I had. But another thing is, if you feel like you're slogging, like, oh my God, this is awful, back to where I was with like, estates and probate and projects, you kind of have to realize like, oh my gosh, like, okay, this really sucks right now, but it's only me that can get out of the situation. Yeah. So I can either choose to be happy about it, or maybe not be happy, but accept it and move on. Accept it.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a story. Just another fun fact. I used to mountaineer and climb mountains. And
really?
Yeah, I've actually done the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim to rim.
That's my gosh.
miles. Yeah, and we did it in 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's 50 miles, 2 days, and it's like climbing 2 mountains.
Right.
Twice.
Right.
So I will never forget, through this time period, I was, we weren't racing, but, I'm a competitive person. So I was racing. And so I had left my group and I'm like, hey guys, like, I'm really going to just like jet up, and maybe I should have just paced myself. But I remember I was climbing up the last few switchbacks and I saw the South Rim Ranger Station, and that's your endpoint. And I remember being like, my knees are wrecked, my hips are wrecked, I'm crying, and I'm in one of the great wonders of the world. And all I could think about is, get me the F out of here. And I was like, I'm so hurting right now.
Oh man.
And I had to sit down and I had to like self-talk. I'm like, okay, the helicopter cannot get you. A wagon cannot get you. The donkeys are not going to get you. You have to get yourself out.
Yep.
You have to put one foot in front of the other.
Yep. And
only you can do that. Yeah. And that's how I feel about, terrible situations, because the hard part is over.
Yeah.
You just got to move forward and move on and believe in yourself and know that you're capable.
Awesome. I love that. Just have faith in yourself.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Amanda, I'm really enjoying our conversation. Our time is almost up, but I have a few questions that I pretty much ask everybody. So I want to start on those. I love it when my guests have some sort of, I call it a happy hour tidbit. I don't know, factoid about either their product or their brand or something that they do. Do you have some sort of interesting happy hour fact that you can share about Julie's or about dates?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Ooh, okay. So I kind of already mentioned that there's 30 types of dates, which I
Yeah.
didn't know. They're like apples, you know?
Wow.
But so Medjool dates are known as the king of dates because they are the largest, the most luscious, and most delicate type of date.
Okay.
And then they are also the oldest cultivated fruit.
Oh.
So, they're
Oh.
even back to like biblical times, Cleopatra, and, they were reserved for Moroccan royalty, which is another reason why they're called the king of dates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just watching that new Ryan Reynolds movie, and right in the beginning, they talk about Cleopatra, gifting 3 Medjool dates. So,
Really?
yeah,
Oh, well, which one is that?
the red something on Netflix.
Oh, yes, yes. Shoot, I forget it. Yes, it's the one is that the one that also has The Rock
Rock.
in it? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
love him.
Yeah. And I like that's like the number one all-time successful Netflix show. It's the red something. Everybody
Yes.
go out and watch the red something
Yeah.
with The Rock in it.
And then another thing too, which I think is really great for people to know, like really important, is that dates are great for fighting climate change. Date trees, you call them date palms, they are carbon catchers. So
Oh,
not
really?
only they harvest, essentially, they take the carbon out of the air, they
Okay.
hold it in their fronds, the fruit, the trunk, and then they sequester the carbon out of the air and put it back into the soil.
Ah,
So
that's so interesting.
yes. So dates are fighting climate change. And in new studies, they're also calling the Middle East, where most of the date palms on the planet,
Yeah.
they're like centralized. They're starting to call that the second Amazon, the second lungs of the planet.
Really?
Yes. So
So fascinating.
very,
That's the same as I interviewed a couple of people about hemp. Hemp is the same way.
yes.
And
Yeah.
sunflowers. I'm like learning more. Okay, so now okay, that's 3 plants that I need in my yard. I don't know. Awesome. Okay. My next question for you. Are there any other women leaders or rising stars out there? It could be in our industry or not that you would like to elevate or just simply admire for the work they're doing right now. And then why?
Yes. So one woman I like to uplift is my friend Amrit Richmond. She's my friend, but also a really wonderful woman in the industry. She's co-founder of Indie CPG. And if you
Okay.
haven't heard of it, it's a community of founders, operators, investors, and such of, the smaller independent brands, more sustainable and eco-minded.
Mm.
And she's, become a really great resource for this ecosystem. And also, throughout the pandemic and, cancellations of trade shows and
Yeah.
shifting everything, she was putting on showcases for brands to meet retailers.
Oh,
So,
really? Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, she's a really great voice in the industry. And, I do admire her, and I think she's doing really great work.
Awesome. And what brands or trends do you have your eye on and why?
Well, I would be lying if I didn't say Dave's, but
Chorus.
yes. But it's reducing refined sugar. I think everyone's fed up with refined sugar. So whether it's a stevia, a coconut sugar, or a date sugar, I do pay attention to those trends because I think they're not only great for the world, but also our health. And as people are looking to reduce chronic disease, like that's a huge component in it. And then also, not just for Julie's, but just for my own sanity and love for the planet, just, sustainable packaging and ways that we can evolve as an industry to not have a negative impact on everything. It's like doing dishes the other night, and I like finished with my dishwasher pod, and the perfectly good bucket that holds them. I'm like, why should I just put this in the recycling? Like, can I just like give it back? And the whole milkman way of life. Yeah, the concept. I think we need to kind of get back to that. So I'm just always like monitoring Twitter and boards and stuff like that for sustainable options.
I have some news for you. Loop, look it up.
Yes. Okay, but I need to research that. But
Yes.
have they developed, like scaled up?
Yes. Loop is growing, and so is. Ooh, I have another one I'll have to send to you. The name is not coming to my head, but Loop is sustainable. They ship it out in reusable containers, and then you ship it back and they refill it, or they send you. Yeah, I think that's the way they do it. So it's just a constant exchange of shipment. You use the same box, and
That's
um,
see?
yeah,
Come on,
check it out. And I learned about it some more because I interviewed two people from Ecos. They do the detergents, and she is Ecos is putting a lot of money into Loop, that organization, and making sure that there is that program continues to grow. There's another one too. I'll email it to you. It just is not coming to my head right now.
No worries.
Yeah.
That's so cool though. I mean, it's remarkable what we've done in the last 30 years. Like there's so many options of every category.
Yeah.
So then you think about like what's going on in our recycling centers, and is recycling happening, and the whole, that whole disaster. So, I try not to think too much about it and lose, but I want to be mindful of it.
Yeah. Well, if you can just have an impact on your immediate circle, that then it just what is that? That ripples out. That's the word I'm looking for. So if you can be a drop, and then the ripple comes out from whatever you're doing, because it's a lot, and not everybody can get involved in something that big. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, we have been talking with Miss Amanda Sains, the director of marketing for Joolies Dates. And then what's the other part of the business? Remind me.
So we have an industrial ingredient business. It's called Desert Valley Date, also we are now married as companies.
Okay.
And, so if anyone is in the industry looking to reduce refined sugar from a product standpoint, I would love to be your one-stop date shop.
Excellent. And Amanda, where can people learn more about you and Joolies?
So you can learn about Joolies at Joolies Dates. Please follow us on Instagram for all the latest dating advice. And also I am on LinkedIn. Probably it's ironic that I'm more active on LinkedIn these days than I am Instagram, but I think that's just what happens when you get older.
Yeah, that's the truth. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. And thanks for all the work that you and your team are doing to raise the awareness of this, what's sounding like kind of a miracle product, or not product, ingredient, plant, whole thing.
Fruit, everything.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what you tackle next and what Joolies tackles next. And I'm excited that we've connected here. And I look forward to just at least waving at you across the hall at Nosh Live. That'll be fun.
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much. This was so nice. And I look forward to many more episodes of your podcast.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you everybody for listening today. Have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe and share with your network. Until next time, be well and do gooder.